Now, good evening, YouTube, and welcome to my latest episode of the No Regrets podcast. Tonight, I'm very honored to have a special guest, Damian Devonish. Damian has been a big part in my life and Andrea's life. He's been our marriage counselor, and he's done quite a bit of work with us, and it's been awesome. And I feel he is... Damian wants people to live without regrets. Damian wants people to live their best lives, and I feel like it's a perfect fit. And so a little bit about Damian. I'm going to read his bio right now. As an experienced therapist turned theologian and pastoral care and counseling expert, Damian, with a BA and a Master's of Counseling, understands the transformative power of addressing spiritual imbalances alongside emotional and physical needs. This hybrid, integrative approach attends to all aspects of the self, supporting each individually while bringing them together to create one harmonized whole. And Damian, you've been a practicing Christian for 25 years. You've been married for 17 years. You've got 3 children, and honestly, your marriage, your relationship with your wife is something that we can only aspire to, and we like that. So some of the qualifications: Damian has a BA and a Master's of Counseling, Bachelor of Arts in Theology, a registered psychotherapist. I don't even know if I'm saying all these right.
You are.
This other one, psychodynamic therapist, Canadian certified addiction counselor. Can you expand a little bit on what all that means for everybody?
It means experience. That's it. It means experience. It means here's someone that has been legally allowed to practice in the field according to the laws of Canada, under the particular college that I fall under, and I am legally recognized to practice in those particular fields within Canada.
Awesome. Damian, why did you agree to come on my podcast?
Well, first and foremost, I know you personally. I know your family personally. And if you ask me, I certainly would try my best to do whatever I can to help you in any area of life. And so this was a simplistic area in which I could help by sharing my knowledge, sharing my experience with the hope that it helps someone. That's my passion. That's my goal in life, helping people.
That's awesome. So, Damian, how long have you been helping people? How many years total?
Well, I went to theological seminary in 2001. At that time, I was also 21 years of age as well. And I would say prior to that, I became a Christian at the age of 18, so around 2018 going 2019, around 2008 2009, and from there I got into the church. I got really involved in the church, and I set out on a mission of trying to do my best. And in trying to do my best, I came across several opportunities to help individuals in many areas of life in varying capacities. And then eventually that settled into pastoring, and it settled into being a therapist. And that is what I've been doing since.
Awesome. And honestly, I'm glad we got connected. I know, I believe a mutual friend connected us, and then I heard you speak at our church several years ago now. And so I'm really glad that we've been able to work together and be connected, because I feel like we have the same goals. We want to impact people. We want to inspire people through our faith to live without regrets and live our most intentional purpose life that God wants for us. Like that's what I believe everyone I interview wants. And so of all the challenges people face that you've seen, how much of it is related to past regrets?
Well, I believe a lot. I believe part of the job of the enemy, i.e., the devil, Satan, is to trap people in the past. Because if you become trapped in the past, you can never really appreciate your present and you can never really reach for your future. And so a lot of individuals that I have come across in life as a therapist and when I function as a pastor, even as someone just having conversations with other people, a lot of people suffer because they are attached to their past regrets, the things that they consider as failures. And because of that, they can't appreciate the present, nor can they appropriately reach for their futures.
So how do you help those people move on from their past regrets?
Well, it's really trying to get people to understand that who you are today is not who you were 2 years ago, 5 years ago. A lot of growth took place organically and intentionally. You have matured in certain areas. And so a lot of decisions that you made 5 years ago, you would not make those decisions today because out of those experiences, you have grown. And so for me, it is about trying to get people to see the growth that has been manifested in their lives because of said experiences. And now, because of that particular growth, you have a better vantage point to see life and to move forward in life and to appreciate your present. And out of the past, you're able to stand in this present moment and appropriately make wiser decisions to navigate your future.
Is part of that people not forgiving themselves for, say, past mistakes?
Yeah. And, and I think it really is because of comparisons. And so a lot of us suffer because we compare ourselves to other people. And so when you compare yourself to other people and you live a life of comparing, you will always suffer because when you compare yourself, naturally you're going to judge yourself harsher than others judge you. And you will always fail when compared to someone else. And so when you don't forgive yourself, when you don't release yourself of your past, you become stuck in that comparing analysis, and that actually brings a lot of stuckness in people's lives.
And obviously, we're never comparing ourselves with someone who isn't, in our viewpoint, much better off, right?
Right.
We're always comparing ourselves with the best comparison possible to make ourselves feel as bad as possible.
Of course. And sometimes it gets a bit deeper than that, because sometimes we are comparing to ourselves to people who are worse off than us, if not at the same level as us, but we view them as being better because we only see a snapshot of their particular life. And so we base an experience on a snapshot, and then we falsely judge ourselves as failures because we do not have full insight into the life of others.
I think that's a really cool point. And to be fair, like I believe Andrea shared with you a little bit of our 2022. Our business ended up going under. We ended up, like, personally going under, dealt with a lot of stuff. And it's very easy for me to look at everyone else in the real estate community who hasn't gone through what I've been through, right? Who 2022 was the best year for the business,
Right.
while 2022 was the worst year. But yet, I guess I have to bring myself back to the big picture and realize we're all in our own lane. and God wants us to be doing different things.
Right.
Can you touch on that?
Well, I mean, when you say that, here's what I would say in relation to that. You are exactly where God wants you to be. Here's the reality. The reality is this. For the person who accepts, for the person who acknowledges that God is sovereign, um, he is in charge of everything. He's in charge of it all, every aspect of my life, down to my business failing, albeit I probably made decisions that contributed to that. But all of that is within the purview of God's sovereignty. And therefore, God has it under control, which means you are exactly where God wants you to be. And for the person who acknowledges and accepts God's sovereignty, you don't lose joy. You don't enter into fear and worry because you trust that God is working it out for your good.
So there's going to be people watching this episode who do not believe in God.
Right.
What would you say to them about this?
Well, when I meet people who don't identify as Christians, I transfer the word God over for the word universe because it becomes
Wow.
something that people can identify with. Because a lot of people who don't believe in God believe in things like the law of attraction, and they're just basic, simple principles of the universe that people believe in. So when I meet people who aren't Christian, I say, okay, the universe has you exactly where you need to be. And, in my mind, I see that as a double statement because I am referring to God, but they can understand the terminology of universe.
Understood. Understood. So, in your experience helping people, what have you found people's most common regrets are?
There was a book that a lady wrote several years ago. I believe she was from Australia. And the book was entitled The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, and it became a New York bestseller. And what she was able to compile in the book, I think she worked as an auxiliary staff in like a nursing home setup. And she kept hearing these repeat stories over and over again. She compiled it into a book and it became a bestseller. And so primarily what happens is that the top regrets from those I have met would be not taking the risk. That question of what if I had started the business, what if I had written the song, what if I had gone after love, what if I had moved to a different country. And the problem with what if is that now you never know because you never did it. Miles Monroe, who was a Caribbean pastor and author, made the observation when he asked the question, where is the richest place in the world? And many of us would say Fort Knox. We would say Alberta's all, the oil sands in Alberta. We may point to Dubai, whatever the case is. But he said the richest place in the world is the graveyard because it has a lot of untapped potentiality, meaning that people died full. They died with all of the dreams that they wanted to accomplish and they never gave it a chance. And they ended up robbing the world because the issue is now is that we can't manifest those dreams. They're dead. And so
Wow.
for me, the major regret that people experience is not taking a chance, not taking a risk on life.
That is
We listen to too many voices.
That's incredibly powerful, Damian. It's interesting because everything I've been through, now that I'm here, I don't know if I would change it. I don't know if I would change the worst year of my life because That's where God really gets your attention. That's where character's built.
It is true, and it gets deeper than that, Alex, because if you change any of the experiences that you have gone through, ultimately you would have changed the perspective that you now have. And the perspective that you now possess is what makes you who you are today, and definitely will shape what you do for tomorrow and the years to come.
That's really cool. I do think I'm a different person than I was 6 months ago or 8 months ago because of everything we've been through. I believe it's made us stronger people, and it's grown us closer to God because of all the impossible situations, all the unknowns, right? The amount of stress that I've never experienced before, and having to give it to God, and just really not sleeping for most of a year, like all those things, right? And so I took the risk. Probably the worst case scenario happened, but I would take the risk again. Obviously, do things different, grow and mature. But I agree with that 100%, because now I know. And actually, from it, good things are actually happening and new doors are opening that would have never opened without it.
Of course. Back in 2009, 2010, my wife and I, and my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law, we bought a business and we started another business. And this was on the heels of the economic crash of 2008. And we thought that we were going to be okay. It turned out that we weren't. We were affected a lot heavier than we probably thought we would have experienced. And those businesses ended up closing in 2010. So we had borrowed money for those businesses. The last installment to clear that loan was made in April of 2019.
Wow. That's incredible.
More than double, triple the amount of time that we had the business, and the business closing was the amount of time that I carried the loan, and we paid that loan off because of integrity. This was in my home country of Barbados, and we had left Barbados in 2012. And so who was going to force me to pay? No one. But I paid it because of integrity and my relationship with God. But out of those experiences, I was able to formulate my practice in terms of what I do now as a therapist based on what I learned. And I believe that out of those experiences, it better suited me to be in a position that I am in at this present moment. And I also believe that God honored my integrity.
Wow. So I would love to repay my investors. Like I owe well over $2 million. And it's such a large amount. I can't even comprehend how I can do it. But I want to do it. And I've been praying that God would open doors that I don't even know exist to make it possible.
Yeah. Well, I remember having a conversation with you briefly about this. And one of the things I remember saying to you is that not everything that we want to do, we can do. Because financially, you're not able. Your heart wants to, your integrity, your standard of life and business. And of course, these are people that matter to you as investors. You want to, but not everything that you can, not everything that you want to do, you can do. And so you just do what you can do. And if it is at this present moment, you can't repay because of that aspect of loss, you're going to have to simply learn to grow with that. And eventually that burden and that load becomes lighter. And if it is that God blesses you in the future with the ability to do that, then you honor that which you want to do. But you can only do that which you can do.
That's really cool. And when you talk about the burden, that is the heaviest burden I've ever carried in my life. And I carried it. Not only did I carry it, but I punished myself daily while I carried it until about 4 weeks ago. And the burden's still there, but I've been slowly processing it and just coming to acceptance of the new reality and understanding that if I don't take care of myself and my family, I won't be here to help anyone. And so, go ahead.
The only reason you have the burden is because it speaks to the quality of person you are, which is you care about the fact that people have been hurt and people have lost. If you didn't have that as a concern within you because of your character and who you are, you wouldn't care. You would have moved on. You would have lost any sleep. So the burden speaks to the quality of character and integrity that you have as a man, as a business person.
Understood. That makes sense, Damian. So to go a bit personal, what are a couple of regrets that you've had in your life? Like, what are one or two of your biggest regrets, and how did you deal with them?
Well, the beautiful thing about it is that right now I don't have any regrets, and I wouldn't say I have lived a life of regrets. For whatever reason, my personality isn't one that sticks to a lot of things, meaning if I had to pack up all of my belongings today and go and live in the Himalayas, I'm good. I will go and you would come and find me with the native tribes. I will be dressed like them and hunting with them because that's my personality, right? And so when things happen, I am able to move past it and go on. If you come to my house tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. and knock and say, Damian, let's go. We are going for a drive to Australia. I'm in. that's just my personality, right? Very, very spontaneous in that particular regard, but I also love to plan. So God has given me this spirit of balance where when things happen, I accept that this has happened. I ask myself, what did I do to contribute to this? If it was a negative outcome, what have I learned from this? And now how can I reapply this going forward as a lesson? And so when people have regrets, very often they're focused on the what of life. They're focused on the why of life. Why did this happen to me? Why now? And so what the why does is that God or the universe, they're not obligated to answer the question why, but the universe, God, is obligated to answer the question what meaning what am I to learn from this? What is the lesson I'm to gain from this? How am I to use this as I move forward? Because what the what does is it propels you forward. The why keeps you stuck and it keeps you looking back.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to write that down. So I guess having you seem to have an easygoing personality. And I think that's beneficial for exactly what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And that easy personality, Alex, was shaped because of a lot of hardships. My personality, in terms of the easy personality, I believe came from my mom, and my jovial personality came from my father. And so I have seen my mom undergo tremendous pressure in life. An example was coming home. There's no gas to cook when she turns the knob, and she looks at me and says, "Go and gather some wood. I guess we're going to have a wood meal today." She never thought about it as an issue. Okay, this is what I'm facing. Now, what do I do next?
Like solutions oriented. Like
Yes.
not a negative mindset focused on complaining, but like solutions. What do we have to do to survive?
And that's a very vivid memory in my mind. And I know that a lot of my personality was shaped out of the pressures that I saw my mom navigate. I'm not saying that she was perfect, certainly not. But I learned that from my mom. And that is part of the context of the ability to let go, to move on as well.
You know what? I think that's awesome. What you said about being able to let go and move on.
Hmm.
I think that is absolutely critical. And I haven't talked about that. I haven't heard anyone else talk about that. I think that's awesome. So, so explain. Obviously, it's a lot of the same, but to not live with regrets in your future.
Mhm.
Like, what do you do in a day? Explain to people so that you're not living without regrets. Is it being easygoing? Is it being open to whatever comes your way?
I
Explain.
think it's a narrative that you have of yourself, the viewpoint, and one of the narratives that I have within myself as a navigating tool is that there's nothing so special about me that precludes me from hardships. So I don't walk around believing that everything good will happen to me. I walk around expecting difficulties and hardships. I don't believe that there's anything special about me that precludes me from difficulties in this life. And because of that, here's another statement that I would say to people: life isn't fair. Birds eat worms, cats eat birds, and dogs kill cats. Life
Right.
just isn't fair. And once you
That's
have that particular viewpoint, that particular narrative, things hit you, they affect you, but they don't stick to you.
I like that.
So we're not saying that you're not affected. Of course you are. You are alive. You're a man, but they don't stick.
That's really cool.
If
It's interesting
you,
because I've been reading through the book of Job.
mm,
Just like I'm going through it right now,
mm,
and I'll tell a couple stories. Well, for those who don't know about the book of Job, I highly recommend you read it. Job lost everything except
mm,
for his nagging wife.
mm,
He lost. He was extremely wealthy. He lost all his wealth, his health, all his kids, absolutely everything.
mm,
And all his friends would tell him is curse God and die.
mm,
And and God was testing him. And I believe God does test us. And God restored him. And it's interesting because I think perspective is so key. Like when you look at what I went through this past year, there's still much to be thankful for.
mm.
And I think when you have a mindset of thankfulness, you cannot at the same time have a complaining mindset.
It's
You can't,
impossible.
what's that?
It's impossible. The two don't
To,
coexist. Yeah.
yeah, you to complain and be thankful at the same time is impossible.
Mm,
And so, like recently, over the past couple of years, I've really pushed myself to not complain and to be thankful. And what's helped me really get through these hard times is really count my blessings, look at what I still do have. I
mm,
still have my family, I still have my health, I still have hope.
mm.
I still have a lot of things.
Of course. You
And it's
have
interesting.
you have more than you know you have. I give you two aspects. There's a passage in the Bible written by Solomon, who was reputed as the wisest man that ever walked the earth, barring Christ. And his statement is this: he writes and he says, and Solomon is called the teacher. And so the teacher writes and he says, a dog that is alive is in a better position than a lion that is dead. And
Mm,
so we have to appreciate that Solomon is writing um, from the East, and he's not talking about modern day dogs in North America that we keep in our houses. He's talking about dogs that eat garbage. They live outside. They're full of mange and all forms of diseases, and they look atrocious. He is saying that a dog in that state, when juxtaposed, when compared to the king of the jungle, the lion, the fiercest beast, when that beast is dead, this dog in that state is in a better position than the beast. And what he's saying is, regardless of your condition, regardless of your experience, if you are alive, there's an opportunity for a better tomorrow. There's hope.
Wow. Talk about when someone loses hope. There was about 2-3 weeks where I felt like I was losing hope. And then God restored that. But talk about when someone loses hope.
Well, I think there's a difference between self-loathing and losing hope. And so when you self-loathe, war is me, the ER complex, the earth is spinning, the sky is going to fall on my head kind of context. But you're able to get through that eventually, because it's not a forever kind of experience. But when you lose hope, that's what takes people to suicide. Because without hope, there's no reason to live. Without hope, there's no purpose. That's why people experience addiction, and that's why people experience depression the way they do, especially men, because they have lost hope. There's no real sense of purpose. And when you lose hope, the only solution is to take your life. What is the reason of life?
Wow. It is so critical that we don't lose hope. That's brutal. And I said just a couple minutes ago where I felt I lost hope. I probably didn't. It was probably just deep depression, deep self-loathing. Like I went into a deep depression this year, and so your mind starts thinking all kinds of things.
And that is normal when you have the kind of loss that you had. The issue is not the depression as a manifested feeling, because what you went through, depression is supposed to be a normal response. Right? Because the body just got a traumatic experience.
That's interesting.
It's kind of like if a client comes to me and the client says, I don't want to shower, I don't want to take care of myself, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to get out of my bed, and they go like, I need some medication, something's wrong with me. I ask the client, how long have you felt this way? The client says 6 weeks. And I say to the client, what happened 6 weeks ago? My mom died. Then I say to the client, well, everything that you are experiencing as a manifestation is normal. This is not abnormal. You are supposed to feel this way because of the loss. And the type of loss that you experience, that comes under the heading of grief. Now the thing about grief, Alex, is that the brain does not know the difference between whether or not you're grieving over the loss of a parent, the loss of a pet, or the loss of a thing. The brain doesn't know the difference. Grief is grief.
Got it.
So clients come to me in the middle of the pandemic because they lost a dog or a cat and they're completely torn apart, but they feel extremely guilty about what they're feeling, because in their minds, they're now comparing themselves to other people who have lost a loved one. And they're like, why am I feeling this way compared to this person's loss? Because grief is grief. The brain does not know the difference as to whether or not you're grieving a person, a pet, or a thing.
That is really cool.
Business, money, relationships, it's tremendous grief. And
actually, I lost the relationship with my business partner Like we were fairly close and we don't talk. And so, you know, a lot of things were lost. And it's cool that you say that about grief, because I don't think very many people know that and understand that. So that's really cool. I just want to tell one more story, going back about perspective. Back in the summer, I had some friends over for dinner who invested a lot of money with us. And, you know, while I was cooking them dinner, we were talking, and I shared absolutely everything. And I started crying and they started crying. And it was, you know, it was a very difficult time. 3 weeks later, their son died. He was 28 years old.
My goodness.
And it's like, who's worse off, me or them? And suddenly it put my situation into a brand new perspective. I just lost money. Money comes and goes. They lost their 28-year-old son. I never thought that night when I was sharing with them about what happened to me, that very soon after they would experience a worse tragedy. And so it's been a brutal year, and that gave me such huge perspective. You know, we have a lot to be
because
thankful.
if you process that through the lens of the Solomon description of the dog and the lion, in this particular case, unfortunately, their son is the lion. There's no more hope. You would have been the dog, regardless of the amount of scars and the amount of blood that you were leaking emotionally. You still had hope because you were still sucking breath.
Very interesting. So, why, in your opinion, is it so hard for people to live intentional lives without regrets? Why is it?
Well, you know, these don't help.
Right.
Social media certainly doesn't help, because you are surrounded by a cascading force of picture perfect lives, many of whom are false, and you are judging yourself by their standards, and you keep coming up short. We would have less mental health issues in the world if we did not have instantaneous access to all the things that we have via television and internet. The more access we get to information, the more mental health challenges and addiction we experience.
Wow.
So if you want to cure yourself of that particular malady of regret, shut yourself off from the news. Give yourself a diet of no access to social media. Get around healthy people, people who are grateful, people that practice intentionality and gratitude. Involve yourself with giving back. Find people who are less fortunate than you and offer yourself as assistance to them. And you will see how tremendously your world and your life changes.
And when you do things like that, you begin to find purpose and fulfillment.
Yes.
Which, at the end of the day, that's what we're all searching for, isn't it?
Yes. Well, without purpose, what do you really have? You have nothing. And especially for men, this is why when a man loses his job, he falls into a depression compared to a female. Because most females do not wrap their identity into what they do. But for a male's purpose is wrapped into what he does. And for a male, that usually comes through our job, the employment that we have. And so when you take that away, or that has been lost, It dents how you see yourself as a male. It dents your purpose and identity, and that's what causes a man to fall into depression, in a way that a woman wouldn't when he loses that part of his identity. If you looked at yourself and your wife, both of you had the same amount of loss, but you had a difference in how you experience it emotionally, because for you, that was your identity wrapped up in that. For her, most females' identity is wrapped up in their family.
Got it. And you know what? Everything you said rings true for me. Absolutely. So there's a saying, the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret. What are your thoughts on that?
Can you hash that out a bit more, just so I understand exactly what you're referring to?
Yeah. So the saying goes, you'll experience one or two, one of those things. You'll either experience the discipline of living intentionally today, because to live without regrets isn't easy. It's hard. Like, I could be at home right now watching TV, drinking beer, but I am doing this podcast with you because I want to live without regrets. So the pain of discipline versus the pain of regret and not discipline.
If I can challenge that particular thought, living without regret isn't harder than living with regrets, and I'll kind of flesh that out for you. It is easier to live a life of regrets, not because it is easy, but because it makes you less responsible. The person who lives with regrets usually live a life of blaming others and situations. And so once I blame others and situations, then I don't have to take accountability for my life and change it. That's what makes it easy.
So kind of like the victim mindset.
Right? Now, if I live a life of regrets and I'm suffering, I am still living a disciplined life. I am living a disciplined life of ruin. It's kind of like the philosophy that says the CEO and the guy who lives under the bridge are both successful, but the CEO is the only one that talks about it openly. You had to make certain decisions and commit to a certain life of discipline, of ruin, to end up under a bridge. And no, we have those cases where people unfortunately found themselves on their bridge, but for the most part, people who are homeless contributed significantly to that particular outcome. You're successful. You are experiencing what you committed to.
Wow. Damian, this is a new perspective. I love it. Keep going on this. I love this.
Yeah. And so if I am living a life of regret, it's because I don't want to take responsibility for my actions and my life. Because let me tell you, taking responsibility for your life and changing your life, that is difficult. That is difficult, but it brings a better outcome. It's kind of like negative self-talk. The same amount of energy it takes to be negative is the same amount of energy it takes to be positive, but they have two different outcomes. So why would I go the path of negativity? Because when I am negative, it is about other people and other situations. I don't allow myself to see me. That's what breeds negativity. That's what breeds regrets. But if you put yourself under the microscope and you consistently look at yourself and see how you can become better and make steps to become better, you will not have a life of regret. You will have a life of success.
Wow. You said something that I'm writing down. Negativity focuses on others and not yourself.
Yeah, always is. It's external.
Do people do that to avoid looking in the mirror because it's too hard?
Well, a lot of people do, and unfortunately, a lot of people aren't aware that is what they're doing because they fall into a rut, right? And so, when I'm negative, I'm looking at external. I'm blaming people, blaming situations. The problem with that is that negativity and regret makes us sound or feel as though we are coming up with solutions when it actually is trapping us deeper in the pit of destruction.
Wow. That is super cool. I think what you just said is a perspective that almost none of my listeners have ever heard.
Mm.
That is incredibly powerful. Because I find most people are negative to one extent or another, unless you've intentionally tried not to be, without realizing what it's actually doing.
Well, all of us are negative. All of us are selfish. This is our default mechanism. These are our proclivities. We came into this world as children predominantly negative and selfish. We have to train or teach ourselves not to be. And when you think about it, you didn't have to train a child to tell the truth. To lie. You had to train a child to tell the truth. You didn't have to train a child to be selfish. You had to train the child to share, because the negative, dark aspects of what it means to be human, these are our default mechanisms. And from a Christian standpoint, that is what we may term the Adamic nature. It flows deep in us. And so being negative and living in that life of consistently having regrets, blaming others, blaming situations, and not looking at yourself, it makes us feel good, but it just allows us to dig a deeper hole into destruction.
Wow. That's really cool. That is really cool. And I think whoever watches this is going to find this extremely helpful.
I hope so.
What is the importance of clarity and goals for someone to live without regrets?
Yeah. Well, you can't have purpose without clarity and goals, because purpose is inclusive of an action, which means you are doing. Purpose is about doing. Purpose is about achieving, is about accomplishing. Purpose is about going after. And human beings were created to feel as though we're always progressing. There are only two experiences for us as human beings. We're either growing or we're dying. There's no in between.
Wow.
We talk about a growing tree. A tree is always growing. Anytime a tree starts growing, it's dying.
Right.
So the way I explain it to my clients is, if you are on the bell curve of success and you are heading up the hill, if you decide to stop, you don't get the opportunity to camp right there. You ebb, you come back. You always have to be progressing. And that point of progression can always move to something better. We can always become better than we are, regardless of what area, what field. There's always more to achieve. And that's what makes life exciting. That's what drives purpose. That there's something to go to bed dreaming about, and something to wake up excited about, something to achieve.
You know, when I decided how I was going to rebuild myself, I decided instead of trying to flip another house right now, I wanted to do something I could talk about all day long, which is this. What I want to do is impact millions of people. Like this is, I believe God placed this within me, and I absolutely love this conversation, Damian. And you know what? Without all my hardships, I don't know if I'd be here right now doing this podcast with you.
Mm. Well, this goes back to what we said. If you change one thing about your past, you also change a lot of what you have as your current views and experiences and how you see life. And so you're absolutely correct. You wouldn't be here without those particular experiences.
Wow. That's it's kind of mind-boggling when you step back and think about it.
Well, you know, if you think about how your mother's genes and your father's genes came together to create Alex, you just subtract one of those genes and you move from your height to probably 4 feet. You
Right.
subtract one of those genes and you probably have right here.
Wow.
Right. And so the way that I pitch it to my clients is failure and success are two different opposites of the same coin. I can't have my successes without my failures. And if I don't have failures, I definitely will not have successes. And so a lot of clients that come to me looking to change certain personality traits or aspects about themselves, the first thing I try to get them to recognize is this thing that you call a weakness, what is this attached to as a strength in your life? Because if we change or alter this weakness, you're also going to change and alter what the connecting strength is.
Wow.
And so once we identify the connecting strengths, most people leave my office not wanting to change the weakness.
That's really cool. That's really cool. So then what do they do? Just focus more on their strengths?
Focus on your strengths. I don't believe in practicing techniques or ways to improve your weaknesses. It's a waste of time. I remember when I went to Bible seminary, I had a lot of singers around me, people who can play musical instruments, and that was never me. And I was comparing myself to them, and I was like, I want to play an instrument. I went, I got a piano, a keyboard, I got the books, I started to take lessons, and I was improving. But the rate that I was improving at was indicative of the fact that this was not my gift. Now, if I had committed to more practice, I would have gotten better, but I would never have gotten to the point of an individual that was his gift. And so I gave away the keyboard and I was done with that because I recognized it. And I said to myself, let me find my strengths and practice my strengths. I was talking to a client yesterday, and this client leads a particular part of a company. A part of his role is to go and meet with customers and ask how we can improve. But he is an introvert, he's shy. And so being out there with a lot of people brings him a lot of anxiety and stress. So I said, your issue is not having a conversation with people. Your issue is having a conversation with the amount of individuals. So let's maximize your strength. Let's bring those individuals into the office and have a one-on-one conversation. And he was like, that can work.
Wow.
You see, I would have wasted a lot of time and he would have wasted a lot of time trying to get him to overcome being anxious talking to a crowd.
Got it.
Let's maximize the strength. The issue is not talking. The issue is talking to the number. Let's pull them into an office.
Right. Wow. That's a cool perspective. Damian, I just have a couple more questions left,
Sure.
more personal ones. If you only had 12 months to live,
Mm.
how would you live differently, if at all?
The first thing that come to mind would be I would try to get to as many ski resorts as I possibly could to kind of snowboard some more. Honestly, that's the first thing that came to mind. I would spend a lot of time trying to snowboard some more because I absolutely love it. Of course, I would spend more time with my family, and I must say that I already intentionally do a lot of that. I would spend more time giving to people, and I must say once again, I intentionally do a lot of that. I would spend more time connecting from a faith level with my God, which I believe I already do a lot of that. So, in essence, this is something that I give thought about often because I think about dying very often. And that is not being narcissistic or having something wrong with you. In fact, the Bible says that the fool thinks about living and the wise man thinks about dying. The reason the fool thinks about living is because he thinks he can regulate his life and control his life. So he's making all these plans for tomorrow and he's not aware that his life may be taken from him tonight.
Right.
The man that thinks about death is wise because he's cognizant that tomorrow could be his last. So he does everything in this moment to make sure that he does his best to live well.
It's interesting you say that you think about death because I think it's quite healthy for people to think about their own mortality because it gives you a different perspective on life and how precious and short it actually is.
And so I'm intentional today about living my life well.
That's cool.
And so all the things that I could possibly do if I knew I only had a year to live primarily are all the things that I am doing currently.
And I think the goal is to get as close to that as possible. Like just for our listeners, for everybody, is that if you only had 12 months to live, you're actually not changing a whole lot in your day-to-day activities.
No.
Because you don't have a lot of regrets or make up for bad things.
And I'm just being open and honest with you. I can't imagine a lot of my life would change.
Well, Damian, that's why I interviewed you, because I believe you're one of those people that are living intentionally, right? And so I expected your answer to be quite similar to what it was. So one last question. When you're dead and gone, how do you want to be remembered?
Doesn't matter. I'm dead. Doesn't matter. I'm dead. I'm gone. However you think about me doesn't matter.
Cool. Well, you know what?
I tell my wife when I die, do not spend any money on a funeral. I say to her, if you can push me down a ravine, do that. If you could feed me to the sharks, do that. Save your money, girl. I'm dead.
It doesn't help you at all, does it?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's super cool. That's super cool.
It doesn't matter. I'm being honest, Alex.
That's what I want.
How people think about me when I die doesn't matter because I don't live my life today governed by how people think about me.
Cool.
Why would it matter when I'm dead? Who cares?
I love that. And I hope that YouTube stays around so people can watch this after we're both dead. Because this is part of the legacy, right? This is part of our impact.
Yeah.
I love it. Damian, if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Well, you can find my website, Integration Psychotherapy Services. Of course, I'm in London, Ontario. My website has all of my contact information. You can give me a call. You can send me an email. And I do sessions with people all over because of technology, Zoom. And so you don't have to be in London to have a session or conversation with me.
And for the record, Damian, I can't count the amount of sessions we've done with you, and it has been absolutely life-changing for us. And
My
so
privilege.
I highly recommend Damian for anyone who's looking for any kind of support in their life.
My privilege.
Awesome.
Thanks for that,
Damian,
Alex.
thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Awesome. Take care, guys.